DraftKings contributors Kenny Ducey, Nick Fryer, RotoWire's Nick Whalen. Good morning, everybody. Who are your favorite DFS and sportsbook plays on this teeny tiny slate? Little NBA pick and roll action. A little light in the guard spot today. So are you picking Donovan Mitchell at 9K, or you want to roll elsewhere, young Kenneth?
Wow, you actually did manage to write him down in record time. I didn't even see you do it, so well done there. Yeah, look, I'm going to take Reggie Jackson at $6,400. I'm not going to fault you if you take Donovan Mitchell. The Indiana Pacers are by far the worst defense on this three-game slate. But I think Reggie Jackson's a pretty good deal here when you look at the usage rate above 25% in 3 of his last 4 games. He's averaged 35 minutes in his last 4 games. He had a 51-point game in there, a 51 fantasy point game. I mean, those are really, really good numbers to get at this price. And I know that the Miami Heat defense kind of scares you a little bit, but they haven't been quite up to snuff over the last 4 games or so. They're on that losing slide. So I definitely think that Reggie Jackson should have the ball in his hands, and he's going to see the floor, right, for probably 35 minutes again. Why not fire him up here at $6,400 on a short slate? Could be a little interesting contrarian play as well, considering the Heat, known to be one of the better defenses. Maybe people want to stay away from Reggie Jackson. I don't know, but I like taking him. He's never going to shy away from a shot, that Reggie Jackson.
Oh, Whalen, how about Donovan Mitchell, man? $9,000. You want to drop it on him?
You know, I think this is a fairly fair price for Donovan Mitchell on a small 3-game slate. He's been comfortably over 40 DraftKings points in 5 of his last 6 games. He's got a couple 50-plus point DraftKings points in that sample, almost got to 60 in one of those games. He's now up to 2nd in the NBA in usage rate, just a couple of tenths of a percentage point behind Luka Doncic. So he's essentially leading the league in usage at this point. And like Kenny said, the Pacers are the most appealing defense to target on this slate. So I'm absolutely comfortable paying up for Donovan Mitchell. I wouldn't mind pivoting to Fred VanVleet at $8,400. You're not saving a ton, so ultimately not sure that's worth it. But likely no Pascal Siakam for Toronto tonight, so maybe some of that trickles down to Fred VanVleet. And if you want to go cheap, I kind of like Furkan Korkmaz. He's coming off of that terrible shooting night against Milwaukee, I should say, earlier this week. I think this is a good bounce-back opportunity. I think some people jump off of Korkmaz when they look at that game log.
Frya, what about you, dude?
A lot of my strategy tonight is going to be based on Jimmy Butler. So first of all, to answer your question about Donovan Mitchell, no. Okay. My strategy is going to be based on Jimmy Butler because of his injured ankle from last night. One would think he's not going to play after he missed the entire second half. And that would, of course, impact Tyler Hero, who's at 6.1K tonight, obviously having a good season. Had 27 points last night with Butler out in the second half. And we know that guy's usage gets impacted immensely when Butler goes out. There's another guy, too, who I'll talk about a little bit later that has even more of an impact than Hero. But the other guy I like, too, tonight is Caris LeVert. I know we're talking about how the Jazz, how Mitchell and everything, it's a good spot for him. But Caris LeVert, he also didn't play last night. He's dealing with that back issue. Of course, got to make sure that he is playing tonight because he's questionable right now. But with him, if he is available, then he's rested, unlike the rest of his teammates who are coming off the first half of a back-to-back. So I think those are 2 guys I'd much rather go with than with Mitchell tonight.
Well, Fryer, one of only 2 players who are more expensive on this 3-game NBA slate tonight, so more expensive than Mitchell, is Sabonis, because Embiid is out. So $9,100, is he your pick at center?
No, there are a few guys I think that are better options here. Andre Drummond is, of course, the first guy you think of with Embiid out, but he's at a pretty high price right now. Still, he's producing at that number when Embiid is out. But the other 2 guys I like a little bit more are Rudy Gobert and Bam Adebayo tonight. Adebayo, I was saying, with Jimmy Butler out, he gets a huge usage bump. Actually, our guy Stan Sun was writing this over on DK Live the other day. 10.8 percentage point increase in his usage rate when Jimmy Butler is out. So that is my favorite play tonight. I think Rudy Gobert is another good one as well at 1.1K cheaper. Just with Sabonis, I mean, I know he had a strong showing last time out, and he's had some good games this season. But before his last game, before last night, again, coming off on the second leg of a back-to-back, he was riding a 3-game stretch of sub-40 DK fantasy point performances. So I don't want to go and put my faith in that guy at that price tonight.
All right, Whalen, you want some?
I think I'm staying away from Sabonis. If I'm picking between he and Andre Drummond, I think I would rather roll with Andre Drummond, who has been over 50 DraftKings points in all 3 of the starts that he's made in place of Embiid this season. It's been a virtual lock, and I think the matchup is what really convinces me here. The Raptors really do not have a center who they trust. They've been doing everything they can to not play Chris Boucher. Khem Birch is banged up. He's not going to play. We just received word like 30 seconds ago that Siakam is officially out. He's been their starting center the last 2 games. They had Siakam last night. They were eaten alive by Robert Williams in that game. Andre Drummond against Precious Achiuwa and or Chris Boucher, to me, is a major mismatch. So I think I'll keep riding that hot hand with Andre Drummond. I like the Adebayo call. I do worry a little bit. I wonder if he's going to be listed as questionable. He keeps kind of going on and off the injury report these last few games with some just like general soreness, I think, in that knee. So I wouldn't be shocked if his status, comes into question on the second night of a back-to-back. But if he does play, I think Nick is on the right track with that one, given the usage bump.
Kenny, what you want at center, dude?
I'll go to Andre Drummond at $8,600. One of the most empty calorie guys in the NBA, right? He's not a good player, but he's going to produce for you in the fantasy basketball department. That is exactly what he's done over the last 2 games with back-to-back 50-point outings. You look at a team that he's going to face here in Toronto. They're bottom 10 in restricted area field goal percentage. It's 66.3%. So Drummond's not going to face much resistance down there. The guys talked about some of the injuries that Toronto's dealing with. And, they're 7th in rebounding rate, but Andre Drummond is a very good rebounder. And there's not really a great rebounding discrepancy here on the board, right? If you're looking at center, there's not going to be one clear advantage, a guy going against a terrible rebounding team. This is probably as good as you're going to get here with Drummond. He's going to be on the floor. The usage is going to be up. And Tobias Harris is probably going to be back, or maybe going to be back for Philadelphia, which maybe gives a little bit of a boost to that offense. Maybe gives Drummond a little bit of a relaxation there and down low without some of the defense that he might be drawing. So I don't know. I mean, I think that all the things could work out here for Drummond, and he's still kind of too low for my liking.
All right, let's go over to the DK Sportsbook here, guys. Which team are you picking to cover the spread, Kenny? Biggest dog on this 3-game slate would be the Pacers. 10-point dogs against the Jazz. Yay or nay?
No way. It's absolutely going to be my Los Angeles Clippers at -4. This is a great spot for them with or without Jimmy Butler. And Nick mentioned that, Jimmy Butler maybe not playing here because of the way we saw that last game end. It was a back-to-back, so maybe they suit him up. But the thing with this matchup is I really, really do think that the Los Angeles Clippers are just shooting the basketball so well right now. They're 2nd in the league over their last 6 games in three-point percentage at 40.3%. That's because Paul George has really picked things up. Paul George is seeing, all the defense, right? Everyone's focusing their defense on Paul George without Kawhi Leonard and, without some other complementary pieces like Marcus Morris and Serge Ibaka. He's still scoring the basketball. He still has 4 30-point games, and this team is still 2nd in defensive rating. So there's nothing clearly stopping this Clippers team on the other side of the ball. The Miami Heat rely so heavily on scoring in the paint and scoring the restricted area, and the Clippers are in the top 3rd of the league in all of those metrics in terms of field goal percentage allowed inside. So I think that this ultimately works out to be a very good spot for the Clippers at home, where they shot the basketball better last year. And I think that this 3-point shooting should continue, and the defense should continue to suffocate a Miami team that really looks kind of lost on the offensive side right now. And that could even get worse without Jimmy Butler because they haven't had Duncan Robinson yet to save them from 3.
Whalen, you taking a dog to cover?
No, I'm with Kenny on this one. I like the Clippers to win that game outright against Miami, cover 4 points at home. This is a really, really tough back-to-back for Miami. And we've all kind of laid out the factors at play here. Of course, they were in overtime late last night against the Lakers. And as Kenny alluded to, once Jimmy Butler went out of that game, they were relying a lot on really difficult shots from Tyler Hero. And for the most part, that's been a good bet this season because he's been hitting virtually everything. But down the stretch, he went cold in that game. I thought Avery Bradley did a really good job locking him up. And if you have to play a full game without Jimmy Butler, coming in after some of these guys were playing close to 40 minutes on a back-to-back, it's a really tough spot against the Clippers team that even if the Heat had Jimmy Butler, I feel pretty good about them defensively. They've been one of the best defenses in the league so far. Paul George, obviously a great on-ball defender so far, and especially these last few games. I think the Clippers are starting to look a lot like that team that we saw kind of run through the Western Conference, surprisingly, without Kawhi Leonard last year. I think they kind of know who they are right now. Guys like Nick Batum have stepped up really big. He played really, really well against the Blazers earlier this week. And again, really tough spot for Miami on the second night of a back-to-back coming off of an overtime game. So I think this is a great spot for the Clippers.
Frya, talk to me, dude. Which team is covering the spread? You have 6 to choose from tonight.
I mean, 6 to choose from, and my fellow panelists and I are all on the same page. Clippers at -4 tonight. I'm not going to go and belabor the point too much, of course. If Jimmy Butler's out, Paul George has been going off. Whether or not he's in, Paul George is doing well, but obviously Butler being out will make a huge difference in that regard. And the Clippers are riding a 4-game winning streak, and they've won by 11 or more in each of those 4 games. So what's not to like about them tonight?
All right, guys, we have under 90 seconds to go in the show, so very quick here. Which game total bet are you picking tonight, Fryer?
Pacers Jazz under 216. It was at under 217 earlier. The under has hit 8 times for both teams this season. Pacers have played 12 games. Jazz have played 11, so easy under for me.
Whalen.
I like that Heat Clippers game to go under 211.5. Clippers have gone under in 6 of 10 so far. That offense has kind of been boom or bust. These are both good defensive teams. And as we laid out, likely no Jimmy Butler here. I think this is one that could be played in the high 90s.
Kenny.
Actually, like the over in that game, I think if Jimmy Butler doesn't play, that's going to force Miami to shoot more threes. They've been one of the 2 happiest teams in basketball. They shoot more threes. The Clippers are shooting well from 3 as well. I think this game will go over.
Way to bring that big Nick energy, Mr. Whalen and Fryer. Kenny, great to have you here as well. That's it. That's a show for today. I'll be back tomorrow morning here on this same desk, 11 o'clock Eastern time, which is the same time we started today's show.